Yo, what's good everyone? Happy Saturday. Hope y'all are having a great weekend so far. Today I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite tournament or GPP plays for this Week 9 NFL DraftKings main slate. And like I always do, I'm going to break down a couple of my favorite game stacks as well as some of my favorite individual plays and stacks. With that being said, let's dive into my spreadsheet here. And we're going to kick things off here like we always do in the top left-hand corner with those highest implied game totals. I talked about this in my cash plays video yesterday. Make sure you go check that out. Got a handful of games here that are approaching the 50-point total, so definitely some shootout potential on this 10-game slate. And as always, I got the highest implied team totals listed behind me there. You can always use that as a reference point as I'm going through some of my favorite tournament plays. Now, before we dive into a couple of my favorite game stacks here, just want to let you all know that I am running a Discord channel. We have a bunch of people talking NHL in there, talking some prize picks, and we have some people that talk NFL, but I'd love to grow that side of the channel. If you want to join that, link in the description below. With that being said, let's dive into a couple of game stacks that I like here for this main slate. And one game I think is flying under the radar from a tournament perspective is that game between the Minnesota Vikings and Washington Commanders. I like stacking up Kirk Cousins with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, and then running it back there with Terry McLaurin. And the Minnesota Vikings love to throw the ball, throwing it at a 63% rate this year, which is the 8th most in the NFL. And they should be able to throw all over this Washington Commanders defense, who rank 28th overall in pass DVOA. So I like stacking up Cousins with his top 2 wide receivers, and then running it back with the number 1 wide receiver for the Commanders, especially with Taylor Heinicke under center. He's targeted McLaurin on 26% of his throws dating back to last season. And it's not like this Minnesota Vikings secondary has been fantastic this year. They rank 22nd overall in pass DVOA. And then another game stack that I like here this week is that game between the Chargers and Falcons. And this game will likely be a little bit more popular, has the highest implied total on this main slate, but there are a number of different ways that we can stack it up. I like stacking up Herbert with Eckler and Gerald Everett, and then running it back there with Drake London, but we can mix in a Kyle Pitts, Algier, Palmer, or even Cordero Patterson if he ends up playing. But both of these defenses have just been abysmal this year, ranking in the bottom 4 in points allowed per game. The Chargers are giving up 27 points per game, and the Atlanta Falcons giving up 25.5 points per game. On top of ranking 31st overall in total defensive DVOA, they haven't been good at stopping the run, haven't been good at stopping the pass. Chargers haven't been good at stopping the run either, ranking 23rd overall in rush DVOA, and while they have been a little bit better at stopping the pass, they haven't been spectacular by any means. So I do believe there's a lot of high scoring potential in this game, and it could just be one of those sloppy shootouts that we see. Now folks, before we dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Crazy to think it's already week 9, approaching the halfway point of the regular season. I appreciate all of you who have tuned into any one of my videos this year, but just note, I got content coming out for the remainder of the season. Alright, now diving into some of my favorite individual plays here, we're going to kick it off with the quarterbacks, and honestly, I'm not afraid to stack up this game between the Jags and Raiders either. I think there's a lot of high scoring potential in that one, and a number of different ways that we can stack it up. But Trevor Lawrence here at $5,200 is just too cheap in my opinion. He's shown some really nice upside this year. In 3 games, he's had 21 plus DraftKings points. That's 4x value at this current price. He had 25 DraftKings points in one of those games. That's 5x value at this current price. Look, if you're getting 4 or 5x value in your tournament lineups, that's 200 to 250 DraftKings points. You're probably sitting pretty nice. And he's sitting pretty nice here in a matchup against this Raiders defense, who ranked 31st overall in pass DVOA. So like I said, I'm not afraid to stack this game up, and you could do that with Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, mix in a Travis Etienne, and then run it back with any one of those Raiders players. Now moving over here to the running backs, and one guy I'd run it back with on the Raiders side is definitely Josh Jacobs. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's talk about Aaron Jones here. He's really been one of the few bright spots on this Packers team. Not even just the Packers offense, but this Packers team as a whole. And he's got a great matchup here against the Detroit Lions, who rank dead last in defensive DVOA. The volume should be there once again for Aaron Jones this week. The Packers really need a win, so he should see 15 plus rushing attempts, and I imagine 4 plus targets as well. And then we got Josh Jacobs there. So as I mentioned, you could do a little Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram stack. That is super cheap to do. Evan Ingram only $3,300, and then run it back here with Josh Jacobs, who didn't have his best game last week, but prior to that, he was playing phenomenal. He's getting both heavy rushing attempts, getting involved in the passing game, and should do pretty well against this Jags defense, who ranked 20th overall in rush DVOA. Now, everyone's talking about Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle going up against this Bears defense, and hey, look, I get it. If you want to stack that up, I have no problem with that. I talked about Tyreek Hill in my Cash Plays video yesterday. The guy's been absolutely phenomenal this year. But nobody's talking about Raheem Mostert, especially with Jeff Wilson getting traded there this week. Everyone think that this is going to be a timeshare, and it very well could be next week. I just don't think that's going to happen the week that Jeff Wilson was traded to Miami. So I do like Raheem Mostert here, kind of a pivot off of the passing game for Miami against a bad Bears defense who ranked 28th overall in rush DVOA. We saw Tony Pollard absolutely shred them just last week. And then I got Jamal Williams there of the Detroit Lions. Now, I know DeAndre Swift came back last week, but he only had 5 rushing attempts in that game. And then their head coach, Dan Campbell, came out and said, that was too many. So clearly Swift is not healthy, and I know he saw 5 targets in that game as well, but him and Jamal Williams have been able to kind of coexist together in the past. And now Swift is limited, so it really doesn't bother me, especially in this matchup here at home against the Green Bay Packers, who have not been able to stop the run all year long, ranking 31st overall in rush DVOA. We then got the wide receivers here, and honestly, this is the first week where I haven't been in love with the wide receiver position. There's still a lot to like about it, but usually I can go through and go, oh, there's 20 different players here that I think are tournament viable. Not really the case here this week, but I do like that Cooper Kupp is the cheapest we've seen him all year long, finally in the 8K range. Now, he is still the most expensive wide receiver on this slate, but hey, he was $9,900 just a handful of weeks ago, so I'll definitely take advantage of that. We know the upside that Cooper Kupp has. The targets have been there. He's second in the NFL with 84 this year, which is a 32.3% target share on this Rams offense. Now, I talked about Christian Kirk there, really cheap to stack him up with Trevor Lawrence. Again, you could add Evan Ingram. Then you're looking at a double stack right away that is super, super cheap and allows you to pay up at other positions. Now, Kirk, he had a really great start to the season, kind of fell off a little bit after that, but it's not due to a lack of volume. In fact, he's seen 17 targets here in just his past 2 games, 10 and 7, and again, he's got a great matchup here against this Raiders secondary, who are the second worst in the NFL, ranking 31st overall in pass DVOA. Now, call this an intuition play, if you will, with Darnell Mooney. I have not highlighted the Chicago Bears much this year, but at $4,700, I don't think he's a bad play, and he really hasn't played that bad here over the past few weeks, and that's largely due to the way that Justin Fields is playing right now, significantly better than what we saw at the start of the season. Now, this is definitely a boom-bust type of play, but hey, that's why we play tournaments, right? And this is a good matchup here against Miami, who ranked 29th overall in pass DVOA, and it's not crazy to think that Miami gets out to an early lead in this game, maybe lean on Mostert in the second half a little bit, and then the Chicago Bears, Justin Fields, Darnell Mooney and company are trying to play catch up in the second half. So like I said, maybe an intuition play here, boom-bust type of play, but I really don't mind it at $4,700. And then I got a couple of tight ends there for you. We don't have Travis Kelce this week, no Mark Andrews, Darren Waller's banged up, no George Kittle, so really the big 4 are off the slate. I don't mind spending up for Gerald Everett or Kyle Pitts, but outside of that, I'll probably just be in the 2 to 3K range. Highlighted a few of those guys in my Cash Plays video yesterday. I don't mind Tyler Higbee here either at $3,700. In fact, I thought he would have been in the 4K range for sure. And he's got a good matchup here against this Bucs defense, who haven't been great against tight ends this year, allowing 15.76 PPR points per game to tight ends, the 5th most in the NFL. Still no Jamar Chase. We do have T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, but Hayden Hurst should really be the number 3 pass catcher in this Bengals offense, so I don't mind him at $3,600 either. But again, just going to be one of those weeks where I likely spend down at the tight end position, hoping one of these guys in the 3K range can score me a touchdown or two. And then I got a few defenses here for you. I have no problem spending up for the Patriots this week, playing at home against rookie quarterback Sam Ehlinger. Pats have been one of the best defenses again this year and should be able to get after that rookie quarterback. Cardinals do give up a lot of points, but they can also rack up a lot of sacks, turnovers, and have 4 defensive touchdowns on the season, and actually played pretty well against the Seahawks just a few weeks ago. And then the New York Jets there, I get it, they're playing the Buffalo Bills, this looks scary, but they're the cheapest defense at $2,000. They have actually been a very solid defense this year, and hey, look, all it takes is one big play for them in order to meet value. If they happen to score a defensive touchdown in this game, you're sitting pretty nice. I'm not saying that's a guarantee by any means. This is obviously a tough matchup, but hey, they're definitely on my GPP radar. And as always, going to wrap up the spreadsheet here with a low-priced option or sub-4K wide receiver play. I got Tyquan Thornton there. Now look, DraftKings has been very good about the 3K range and wide receivers this year. Really hasn't been a lot of value, but Thornton did stick out to me. With Devontae Parker getting injured on the first snap last week, we saw Thornton step in as wide receiver number 2 in this Patriots offense, behind Jacoby Myers. He played 78% of the offensive snaps, but he only had 2 targets. However, I looked at his game log prior to that, where he saw 3, 5, and 5 targets in his previous 3 games, so I didn't mind that, including a Week 6 game against the Cleveland Browns, where he had 5 targets and 3 carries, which ultimately led to 2 touchdowns and 21.3 DraftKings points, so he's by all means a boom-bust type of play, but having that 20-point upside is really nice to see, especially in a matchup here against the Colts, who ranked 20th overall in pass DVOA. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great weekend here, folks. Let's win some money on this Week 9 main slate. In the meantime, I'm out of here.